Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets. Our pins have character. Kirk, Spock, and Uhura are on a landing party together. It's just not that Kirk. The rest of the episode is totally classic Trek, though, so settle into the captain's cozy quarters as we discuss this week's episode. I'm Mike Bovia, and this is Discovering Trek: Strange New Worlds. Hit it. Thanks for joining us on Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe companion, presented by Fansets. Love it or hate it, this episode harkened back to the original series with its tone, and the only thing that was missing was a classic face lighting on a close-up. This week, our roundtable has kind of become more of a triangle, since we have just our three regular co-hosts. So, without further ado, making his Discovering Trek debut, one of our regular co-hosts, but last week he had some family business to attend to. He's Matthew from With the First Link. And Matthew, how could you want to spend time with family when you could be spending time with me? I mean, I don't get it.
Well, actually, I was on the ship. I was just on a different deck for that episode. So
okay.
Up for this one, like, or we just don't talk about it. It's like when Bones just shows up and we just don't say anything about it.
Yeah, it was like how Uhura said today. No, it really is a big ship. It really is a big ship.
It really is.
And then, of course, back with us as our other regular co-host is Yvette from the Sci-Fi Sisters. And I apologize profusely to you, Yvette, that you have to deal with the two of us today. Last week was probably far better company. But how you doing?
I'm good. No, this company is fine. We're talking about my favorite show, kind of show. I don't know if it's my favorite yet, but it's getting there.
It's getting there. Well, see, you have 5 episodes of this that you've been able to watch versus 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine that I know you love. So,
it's,
all right,
it's creeping in there though.
Well, that's great. That says something good about this. What is it? This show.
Series.
It's series. There you go. It's late. My brain isn't working. Yvette, why don't you tell us how the show can be found on social media?
If you like to follow the show on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Discovering Trek, or on Facebook, you can join the conversation on Camp Kittimer. Answer a few simple questions, and our admins, Haley, Jackie, and Fark, will let you in. A reminder that this episode of Discovering Trek provides spoilers for the Strange New Worlds episode Children of the Comet. If you have not watched yet, head over to Paramount Plus and watch the episode and head back. Failure to do so leaves you open to spoilers.
Episode 102 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Children of the Comet aired May 12, 2022. It was written by Henry Alonzo Myers and Sarah Tarkoff. It was directed by Maya Vervilo. Episode synopsis. All right. So while on a survey mission, the USS Enterprise discovers a comet is going to strike an inhabited planet with a pre-warp civilization. They try to reroute the comet only to find out that an ancient alien relic, is buried on the comet's icy surface and is somehow stopping them. As the away team try to unlock the relic's secrets, Pike and Number One deal with a group of zealots who want to prevent the Enterprise from interfering.
Wow. Like, I feel like I need to retire my voice now. That was like full on radio. Like, I felt like I was just there. Awesome. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you. I do spend all day flying people around in a planetarium. So I just came back from that today. So I'm all warmed up. I'm ready. I was talking all day about black holes. It was amazing.
Awesome. Well, since you weren't here to join us last week, we're going to go thumbs up, thumbs down, and we're going to start with you. How do you feel about it, and why do you feel that way?
All right. So I was kind of behind on Strange New Worlds, to be honest. So I watched both episodes together last night in order to catch up for today. And wow, I heard a lot of positive things about Strange New Worlds and the intertubes, and people saying that, you know, the vibe was like, you know, this is like feel like Star Trek, and kind of in a general, I didn't hear anyone saying anything negative about the show. And I loved the first 2 episodes. I thought they were really good. Like, this one in particular, I always love those stories that deal with like this sort of these ancient artifacts or things that are old. Yep. Kind of reminds us of like the ancientness of life that might extend through the universe, and where has it gone and was it seen, and so I gave it a thumbs up. I thought this story was really neat, and it reminded me of like almost like a TNG kind of style episode. In fact, I think we have found ancient relics in comics and in TNG as well. So I was into it. Absolutely. I was into this story.
Absolutely. Yvette, how about you?
Well, I don't know. I just love this. I mean, we finally got a Cadet Uhura episode. I mean, it's been my entire life basically waiting
it's true.
for this episode. So there's like 2 thumbs up, maybe a thumb down for being so long that we had to wait. But it was great to know. We learned so much about her
right
in this episode. And I just loved her. I loved Celia's performance. The fun. There was so much fun in here. There was so much angst. I just loved it. I mean, it, like Matthew said, it was. I hate to say it. It felt like real Trek. I hate to say that, but it definitely felt like the Trek that I love. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Definitely, and I'll state right now, thumbs up for me as well. It definitely felt like old. I don't want to say old timey Trek, but it felt like old timey Trek. You know, and not even like even the newer incarnations of the Berman era Trek, like not Voyager style or Enterprise style, but it harkened back to TOS, TNG, and I would say the early parts of Deep Space Nine before they started serializing the war. Very, very much so. And probably a very good comparison to Deep Space Nine, because at least in Deep Space Nine, they did what Strange New Worlds' target is. You know, in the beginning, they would wrap up an episode, but the character points would carry over. You know, again, the thing that I harken back to is, you know, it's not 1 week Worf breaks his back and the next week he's, you know, fighting the aliens on the holodeck.
Right.
You know, there is a memory of what's happened.
I love
so
that.
Yeah.
What I loved in this. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Nope. I was going to say, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So what I loved in this is that with Uhura's character, they found that she could communicate with this object, or what they pulled out of the character is not just the skill that she has for communication, but it's from this song. So she's singing this song, and it's connected to her past and her personality and her life back home. And she makes that intuitive connection between just her personality, because she's singing because that's just who she is.
Right.
Then realizes, oh, but this is also another form of language. Right. And she's able to make that intuitive leap to then communicate to the object. And like, that's the cool stuff that I love about Star Trek. Is that the world around us kind of reflects who we are inside when we bring it out into the universe. That's always thought like the Enterprise is, you know, as much as a soul ship as it is a starship, right? And we get to see Uhura's soul on demonstration and how she like problem solves with all of her abilities in this instance. And I was like, when it turns out that it's reverberating like with her music, I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. She's connecting with this thing through song, and starts talking about how song is also mathematically a language and brings that all into it. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yes. It was very Star Trekky.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the other thing that I really loved about that is how, you know, it hit on a point that was seldom used in TOS. And that is the fact that, you know, Nichelle Nichols had a great voice. And what did they do? They used it like twice in TOS.
I think so, yeah.
You know, and that was a prime piece of the story for this episode was the singing component. And we know Celia is a great singer, with her Broadway performances. So,
library computer, data being received.
well, before we get too carried away, let's jump into the key points, since it seems like we're naturally going in that direction. So, Yvette, what about key points for you from this episode?
The key points was, I think so the theme, I guess, was what Pike said. Sometimes things go so bad that you just have to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the running point of the whole kind of show, because things were going really bad for everybody. Yep. I mean, especially for poor Kirk. That poor guy. I mean, I don't know if he could laugh at the end, but he should, because she told him not to go up there. But I think that was, and then they were kind of gelling together. They kind of they're figuring each other out as things go along. I like that in episode 2, we saw them get together, and then things went bad, but they had to work together to get things good again. And they had to they actually learned a bunch of stuff about each other and themselves in episode 2. I just want to reiterate that, because these last 2 series that we've been looking at, it would have been episode 10 by the time we got to this point. So I think it's I think I lost my train of thought. I was so happy about all of that. But I think, we because we meet what does she call them? The crazy space.
Oh, yes. The crazy space monks. Yeah.
Right. So,
the shepherds.
The shepherds. So, it was a lot of bad stuff, but it ended up turning out good. But like you said, and Spock laughing at the end, it was just, I love the point that we got a premise in the beginning, and then it came back at the end of the episode. So I don't know if that's a key point, but every time I think about this episode, I know it's an Uhura episode, but that always sticks out to me, that they actually, it was so well thought out, this episode. So this is, I might have missed it, but
if it's a key point to you, then it's a key point. That's all that matters.
That was the point. It was like, wow, somebody actually looked at this episode and said, yeah, we're going to make this an episode that works just for this episode. We don't have to wait till episode 10 to get the point.
Yeah. And I want to key in on something that you said there, where you said they learned something about each other, and then they learned something about themselves as well. I mean, that is... we've all said it already, and what are we, 10 minutes into this episode? And it's such a Star Trek thing. It is such a Star Trek theme that you learn about yourself, you learn about the people that you're working with, and things gel together, right?
Yep. I love it.
So Matthew, key points for you?
The reason why I love Star Trek when I was growing up was all about the idea that you would explore, you had this purpose and you got to do it together. And that in going out together, like you're saying about as well, like the way that you grow and learn at the same time, and then that we become better together, but also become closer together, kind of forged into a family. And I love, like, already right in the beginning, there's kind of that family dynamic. We're all eating together right at the beginning of the show, right? Like everyone's come together. Like Pike's cooking for everybody, and he's kind of like, he looks almost like dad, cooking at the table and making everyone food and kind of bringing together. So I love that element right off the bat. Like there's already this camaraderie between the characters, but in doing so, the point of that camaraderie is to let everyone be their best and to actually make room and encourage them to be their best. So allowing Uhura to step into the role, and when she expresses some of that hesitation, is saying, okay, well, but we're still glad that you're here in the meantime. So at least give it, feel it out, think what you're going to do. And then at the end, you have that beautiful moment where Spock's like, we're honored to have you here. Like you're a member, like a valued member of this team. You think outside the box, you brought this element that we wouldn't have otherwise seen. And then in addition to that, the connection that we have even to this like kind of strange group of people, these religious zealots, that we're also still able to make a bond with them as well. Like Pike makes enough room to still try to honor what they believe in, even though it seems completely antithetical to what we believe in, and how we're going to make all these things gel together. And the result of that connection internally with each other, then to this other species. What do? We bring rain to a whole other world.
A rain, that's right. So now it's going to be a mud ball. I was like, really? I mean, that's a desert. What you think the rain is? All that rain is, I don't know.
Like we've studied soil erosion. That's not going to work this way. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You're spoiling my moment. Anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what it got it for me, was these ideas of connection and how it literally, it brings life. And that's what they said at the end. This thing brings life to this planet. Or like you said, in this case, a lot of soil erosion and mud.
Oh, that's awesome. So for me, a key point, it actually kind of goes along with what you were saying, Matthew, that connection. And for me, it was the connection between what's been going on with Pike, from season 2 of Discovery moving forward here, but then also Uhura's story, not necessarily her story, like her background story, but what she's going through right now. And she doesn't know if this is the place for her. She's really trying to feel out what it is that she needs to do. And Pike is really doing the same thing. He asks her that question at dinner. What do you think you're going to do in 10 years? And that the sentence gets caught in his throat because he's thinking ahead. 10 years from now, I'm going to be in that chair. But he's still trying to feel out how he's going to handle himself moving forward. And she's doing the same thing, just in a different way. And I thought, it's just like last week where La'an made a comment that like keyed in his brain about, that kind of goes along with what I'm dealing with. It seemed like today in this episode, it was the same thing with Uhura. She made the comment about the Comet had foreknowledge of what was going to happen to it.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And right away he was like, let's see, I think I wrote it down here. Your fate is what you make it. He has that foreknowledge. He's accepted what's going to happen to him. Now it's what's he going to do between now and the time that happens. Yeah. I just thought it was a really neat dynamic how they were able to work the two of those to get, a guy who is like, we know he's one of the most decorated captains already at this point, and she is a cadet. Which also, by the way, wasn't it awesome to hear the 37 languages not even a throwaway line, but how he goes, I've heard you speak like 11 or 12 languages. She's like, actually 37. And everybody stops talking. Right.
The whole room's done.
Yeah.
And even Spock goes, excuse me?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
I thought that was a great scene.
It was.
Such a great scene, I like the scenes with her and Spock.
Yeah.
I like those a lot. It reminded me of Who Mourns Adonis. I every time I saw it, I kept thinking about that. When they're underneath, and he's like,
"Yes,
if anybody can do it, it's you."
Absolutely. Yeah. It's it's interesting backstory for those episodes that we all already know. To see how they have this connection already from serving together before.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said, Mike, I hadn't even really thought about the fact that they did introduce that Uhura sang in TOS, but they didn't actually like do anything with that. So they actually made it like a core component of the story in this episode. I was like, oh yeah, until you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's an element of her character that now we've actually like brought forward.
Yeah, I think it was literally just like the actual singing part. I think was just in Charlie X. Maybe one other episode.
I don't. It's another episode.
The one where Nomad shows up, because she's singing in that one, and Nomad doesn't like it, or is interested in it, and it scrambles her mind. But
that's the other thing, because in that one she was actually doing what she's doing here. She's humming. She's humming to herself, and that's which the first thing I thought of is, oh my God, she's humming in this in this comet, in this place. There's no way that it's going to screw with her like Nomad did. But man, it's like these writers are thinking of everything, which is very cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you know, you got to dig deep for it too. It's not just like, you know, here's Spock and that's our throwback. No, it's like really deep stuff that you got to be dyed in the wool. Yeah.
Deep cuts. I mean, so if think about it, what's your favorite series? If you had to write something and you like DS9, I know some deep stuff I would like. I would love to hear more about this, what happened that day. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff from the Dominion War. I want to know, well, what happened to that guy? You know, what
Battle
happened to
of Beta Z. Yep.
Remember Talk?
Yep.
Oh, the Battle of Beta Z. Yes, please. I read the book, but still.
Yeah, me too.
I would like to know more, you know? Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's fans will find that deep cut, you know, and other fans will appreciate it, you know, so.
And then at the same time, it's so deep that if it's a brand new fan and it goes over their head, they're not totally lost. You know, they will, you know, if they like the series enough and they watch going forward more episodes, they're going to be like, hey, that's from that episode that I watched here. Yep. So this is like the complete package so far for a series, is what I'm feeling. And I don't know. I know you're feeling that way, Yvette. What about you so far, Matthew?
Well, there are people, I mean, surprisingly, not every friend in my life actually watches Star Trek. And so I was thinking, hey, for those last few folks that I haven't been able to draw in yet, this might be the series to do it. And so watching these first two episodes, I was like, you know what? This would be a good way to try to introduce Star Trek to people that I know that haven't really, the series just hasn't really bitten for them yet. But this one I think would, because it feels really, like you're saying, Mike, for those of us who know some of that back history of some of these characters, we can see how lovingly the writers have gone out to mine some of those little pieces of information and bring it forward in the character. But for those who don't know any of them, like haven't watched the original series, or at least in a long time, they could still just on the surface see the substance of what's there. Like I haven't gone back and watched the original series in a long time. But even still, like I just, you can just appreciate it for what it is and what they're trying to do with it.
Yeah. I agree. I think this is a great series to bring new people into. You know, I think, because I think they'll love it. I mean, it's new, you know, it's good. It's what's out there now. You know, it's in the same format. It doesn't, you know, it's not TOS old.
Right.
But,
right.
You know, but I think people would really love it coming in.
And it brings something like, I think the vibe that we were trying to clue into a little bit earlier or touch on earlier, it feels nice. It's a nice feeling show.
Right.
Like it's got, I felt at the end of the first two episodes, I'm like, like I feel warm and nice. And it's nice.
I love Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like that warm blanket, you know, that comfort food that you have. And, you know, I mean, we're fortunate that we've got to see more episodes so far than have been released to the public, but still, I mean, I don't know that I've ever felt this good about a series over just a few episodes as I have with this one. So far. And I still appreciate and totally respect where the writers have taken some of the other new series. And granted, I admitted that I'm behind a whole season of Picard, but I watched the first one. I'm caught up on Discovery and have watched the animated series. And I love them. They're all like in their own way. They're different. But what I liked about this one is that it's like a new blanket, but it still felt like the old one.
Right,
it's got that same texture. And I'm like, it's gone through the wash and we've patched it up and made it better. But it's and more with the times and accessible to a wider group of people and more representative. But it feels like that old fabric. You know,
I agree.
It's weird. It's weird to me. What you said there, Matthew, about it's up to the times. Like, it feels weird to me that this series feels like it's going to speak more to what's going on in life today than both Discovery and Picard have. You know, Picard touched on it a little bit this year, but it was one episode and then it was like done. Um, episode 1 right away, we saw the footage from January at the Capitol.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that we've had 2 series already, and there's been all kinds of things to learn about humanity that come from that. But I watched this and I'm like, this feels like what TOS was for the 60s when it comes to the allegory part of things.
Well, and I think when Pike is standing in that room and he's talking, those were Gorn, right? This was like a reimagined Gorn. Is that where they were on that first planet in the first episode?
First episode?
Oh, I don't know.
I thought I thought that they were like, I thought they said that these were the new versions of the Gorn.
Oh, no.
Because it's on the pad, but I wasn't sure if that's what that meant. But
that's La'an. So
that's her backstory.
Family. Yes, her family was killed by the Gorn.
Okay, so I thought these were also like the new version of the Gorn, and that's why they were worried about her going to that planet. Anyways, not to jump too much back into the last episode, but when he's standing in that room and he's talking to this group of people and he's saying, here's where we are now, but here's where we could have been. That's like what Star Trek did for us when we first watched it.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't us in the thick of it then. It's like we had gotten over that, and here's the new model. And I think that's why we loved Star Trek at the time. And I think it's okay to go back to those darker places like Picard has been and be in them then to figure out how we got to this point. But it's kind of nice to think, okay, but at some point we will get through it. And let's live in that space now for a little while, because it is comfortable to be hopeful like that. And that's what I appreciated. I loved that scene in the previous episode too, where he's standing in that hall and he's like, don't be like us. Let's be like we are now, We'd like to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Fansets merchandise, as we know, is the leader in pin collectibles for Star Trek, but they offer more than that. In addition to Star Trek, you can find pins for The Big Bang Theory, Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, Harry Potter, and Rick and Morty.
So on this show, obviously, we're talking about Strange New Worlds, but on fansets.com, there is all kinds of different parts to the Star Trek universe that you can go out and get. We've talked about Picard a little bit. We've talked about Discovery. We've talked about TNG and TOS and Deep Space Nine. They've got all of that stuff there, but they also do have stuff getting us ready for Strange New Worlds. You can get the micro crew pins for Pike, Number 1, and Spock in their Discovery Season 2 uniforms. You can get the Microfleet Enterprise as depicted in Strange New Worlds and Discovery. You can also get that sweet Command Delta that Pike and Una are wearing in these episodes, either in pin or magnetic form. Now, talking about deltas, they also released the motion picture delta as seen on Admiral Kirk. All of this stuff is available at fansets.com. So go there and put a whole bunch of pins in your cart today.
And as a listener to the show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using code TrekGeeks, easy to remember, at checkout. And remember that you receive free shipping in the US on orders $30 or more. Fansets, our pins have character. And we thank Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
So this section is all about humanity and what we think we can learn about ourselves, what this episode might have taught us in how we deal with humanity. So Matthew, I'll call on you first. What did you think of when it came to this for Children of the Comet?
What I love about Pike and his leadership on the ship is that people feel like they can be their best selves, and he calls on them to do that. I think that's the best kind of leader. And what I loved about growing up watching Star Trek was that there's versions of that going all the way through, but is that it's leadership that's humble. It's not, it's not the bravado. It's not, and for someone who works with other people and is sometimes called upon to train other people, I always try to keep that in mind. I'm like, what models of leadership do I see? And Pike is awesome, and we love this new version of Pike in the show, and I think that's what he very much does. He stands behind you, not trying to be in your way to to manage or whatever, but he's trying to push everyone forward to be their best. And so we get to see that in this episode. We get to see Uhura given the encouragement, also by Spock as well, to like bring her whole self forward. And it's very much bringing her whole self that leads to the resolution of this episode. So that's what I like. I like watching Star Trek sometimes from a leadership perspective and how it encourages us to be our best.
Yeah, I love how Ortegas told Uhura in the beginning of the episode, he invites everybody to these dinners. It's not just his command crew. Right. He wants to get to know everyone, wants everyone to be comfortable with him. So yeah, that's the perfect point to go along with what you were saying, Matthew. Yvette.
So I think I love the fact that we get to see. I love crew episodes. I love episodes when the crew is part of the episode. My favorite TNG, my favorite DS9 ones are always when the crew is involved. And so far, all two of them, the crew is always involved in this. And we got to see almost everybody in this one. We got to see, of course, Uhura. We got to see Ortegas be, that person. That every ship has probably got that person. So she, we had to deal with her hijinks. We learned about, I think we learned about Enterprise Bingo. We learned about Pike. We learned about Una, how Una told him that. What did she say to him? What if your fate is what you make it? So, I mean, that dynamic with those two, which I want to know more about them, because from what Anson told us on his interview, the two actors feel like they probably went to Starfleet together. Awesome. Like they know each other well, like they've known each other for a long time.
What a great description. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. I would love to see, I want to see more of that. And I think the humanity is that we're learning these people as who they are. Maybe they're not all humans, but we're learning them. And I love that that's the Star Trek I want. I want to know about the crew. So I always say that in Discovery. Why don't I know more about this crew? Yeah. There's so many of them. We know their names, but I would like to know more about them. And every week we get a new person that is the star. It's their episode. And I love that we know more about all of them. I mean, La'an, I mean,
yeah, she's great.
We know about her, but boy, she was a real, I have a word for her, but I'm going to leave that out, because on the planet, she could have been a little more helpful, but I get it. She's the security. But yeah, I think it's just, everybody showed the humanity. We got to learn more about them as people instead of their titles. And I like that a lot. And I also like that in the end, they all kind of said, you know what, these crazy space monks might not be as bad as we thought they were. They might be on to something. And they were okay with learning something that they were really not about learning. They were like, these people are crazy. Let's do it. But then in the end, they were like, well, we could have been wrong on this one.
That's what they said too. They were like, see, we told you.
We told you.
Comet knows.
What was the name of that? Mahit, or what was the name of that?
Let's see. I've got it written down here.
Me too. I care. Majid.
Mahanit.
Mahanit. Mahanit knew.
That's right.
Mahanit.
That's right. And it's funny, every time he would say the comet, they'd say Mahanit, to the point where he's like, all right, okay, I'm gonna go with what you're saying.
Yeah, he takes it on.
Yep. To make sure
Yvette, I was gonna say, it's so cool. It's so cool that you guys got to interview Anson. I think that's amazing, right?
It was.
Wow.
Twice.
That's amazing. That was so cool.
Yeah. Once over Zoom and then once in person. That's
in person. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. He's a lovely man. I keep saying that.
He certainly is.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. He's wonderful.
So for me, I thought about how you need in order to succeed in life, you need to have confidence in yourself. We see that among our whole crew so far, especially when they are getting ready to fly into the tail of the comet there with Ortegas. And she's like, all right, it's all me, evasive pattern, Ortegas Gamma 1.
Gamma 1.
What?
Right.
She's like, you said improvise. Let's do this. But the one person that doesn't have that confidence yet is Uhura. And we see that build throughout that episode. She makes the comment multiple times on the comet, I'm just a cadet. I'm just a cadet. And, we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. This Sam Kirk character seems like he's just a throwaway guy to like throw people off. But he did make a good comment to her when they were there. He said, look, yeah, you're here on a rotation, but you're also here for a reason. Right. You know languages. You can figure this out. Right. That's why you're here.
And you're the expert right now.
Right.
So let's get it together.
Yeah. So I thought the growth of her from the beginning of the episode, where at the dinner she's like, I don't know if Starfleet's for me, to the end where she's just this confident person who presents this report and says, look, this is how it is. This is exactly how it is. There's no other way about it. And Pike's like, okay, thank you. That's a great report. I appreciate it. Just confidence helps you in so many situations. And something that Matthew said, going back to leadership, confidence, not overconfidence. The right amount of confidence while still having the humility to be able to lead.
The best leaders have humility, that's for sure.
Yep.
They're very humble people. The best leaders I've had, they're very humble.
Starfleet Command is proud to present you the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor.
All right, time for our awards section. So, as you know, the awards, it can be anything that we like from the episode up to 3. So we can have 3 actors. We could have producers involved. We could have writers, prop masters. I think last week CGI was mentioned. So whatever you want to award for this episode, it's up to you. So Yvette, we'll throw the ball to you first.
So I get 3?
You can have up to 3.
Up to 3.
You don't have to use all 3.
All right. So I'm going to go with phrases that were used. So my favorite phrase was the crazy space monks. Oh, that was perfect.
That's great.
And then evasive pattern, Ortegas Gamma 1.
Nice.
She's been holding that forever. She's ready. She was like, yes, I can finally use this. She's ever since the academy, she was like, one day. So those 2, I think that's it. And of course, like I said before, the fact that Pike says sometimes things go so bad that sometimes you just have to laugh. And the fact that he said that, and then at the end we got a laughing Spock, a giggling Spock, because he was pretty much, there was a giggle there, and he quotes the same thing. So those 3.
Awesome, Matthew.
Well, it sounds like digital effects were covered last episode, but I feel like
you can do what you want. You can double up if you need to.
The show just looks amazing. Like it does. Beautiful, like the opening sequences. And so as someone I do astrophotography. So we have a telescope that I work with at Simon Fraser University called the Trache Observatory. And we can use it to take images of space. It has a special astrophotography camera. So I really appreciate like well rendered space visuals that just kind of look like kind of spacey, right? I mean,
Right.
we can see spacey without having to be an astrophotographer, but it's an aesthetic that I really appreciate because I do image space. And so to look at the visuals and how they've laid things out, especially in that opening sequence, just looks so good. So I remember even in some of the preview stuff they had submitted, I was like, wow, the show just looks really, really pretty.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go with visual effects. That'll be mine. And then I was just going to throw it out to the writers. So Henry Alonso Myers and Sarah Tarkoff. I just think this episode is just so well constructed. It flows so well. It tells such a great story from beginning to end. There's like great setup and payoff with like the humming and the singing and that like coming out later on. And you know, them talking about a dry planet. And then, you know, you get the rain falling at I was like, this is just so good. So I just thought it was a well-written episode and the pacing was beautiful and I loved it. So they threw it up to the writers.
Yeah, you know, we talk a lot about in Star Trek how there's an A and a B story. And it's like this one kind of had an A and a B story, but the A and the B story like worked together, which was phenomenal. I love that.
Yeah, a lot of TNG and Voyager and DS9, they all had that, right? You had kind of an A story and a B story. And at some point, they kind of come together. But yeah, that's right.
So for me, I'm going 3 actors. First off, I mean, we need to recognize the work that Celia Gooding did in this episode, both from a voice perspective, but also just from showing the innocence of Uhura in the beginning.
Yeah.
And the growth through the episode. You know, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is Beyond Broadway. This is one of her first big things, correct? Like Broadway was her thing before.
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. But I think this is. I don't remember anything else. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. And if she did anything else, this is definitely the biggest.
Yeah. So I mean, hats off. I mean, she's showing some acting chops right there.
Yeah. I mean, she's a Broadway girl. She can act.
For sure. Melissa Navia. We've talked about her before a few times, and it might not have even made the show. It might have just been in our conversations beforehand about how, you know, she did so much work behind the scenes to make sure that panel in front of her was hers.
Yep.
She knew what every button did so that, you know, in episode 2, she isn't doing something different from in episode 10. She sells it. Like, even in the scenes where she's not doing anything with the panel, like just the byplay that she has with Pike, like, oh, that pissed him off. You know, she's just like right there. Like she's the officer for Pike because he's got those little one-liners here and there too. Yeah. It's like the two of them are on the same wavelength. I love it. And then Ethan Peck, you know, he's done phenomenal work with the Spock character, but I thought in this episode, it was a good melding of that Spock that's still trying to discover who he is between the Vulcan and the human side, you know, where we get the laugh at the end, but he's also curious at the dinner, like, why is it that everyone thinks that this bad thing that happened is good? You know, Pike tripping on the pants. You know, he doesn't understand all of that right now. But then in the episode, as you know, he's not even the commander in charge of the landing party, but we're seeing what the TOS Spock is going to become, or we're seeing him being the Spock that he will become in the future, which is good. I thought it was a good melding of the Spock we know and the Spock that we're learning to know. So great work for him. Appreciate what is surely maybe the single hardest job on this show right now is not replacing Leonard Nimoy, but having to fill Leonard Nimoy's shoes.
Filling Nichelle Nichols' shoes aren't too.
That would be, yes. I was going to say that is going to be a very close number 2, and I think it's kind of gone under the radar so far because we weren't we weren't ready for it. We found out 6 months ago maybe that she was going to be playing Uhura.
Right. Because we always knew there was going to be those three, but we didn't know that we were going to get Uhura. I
like it.
I like it too.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
All right. So next week, the Enterprise encounters a contagion that ravages the ship. One by one, the entire crew is incapacitated except for number one, Una Chin Riley, who must now confront a secret she's been hiding as she races to find a cure. Episode 3 is entitled Ghosts of Illyria, and we'll be covering it here for you on Discovering Trek: Strange New Worlds.
Don't forget that you can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Get access to unedited audio of all our podcasts and of a lot of other perks. If you'd like to support this and the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam on over to patreon.com/Trek Geeks, where subscriptions start at low as $2 per month. For more great Star Trek discussion, check out the aforementioned member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, there is Trek Geeks, Rewind, Polytreks, 5-Year Mission, Deep Space Pride, Drawn to Trek, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, Sci-Fi Sisters, Science Station 2, with the first link and the newest addition to the network, Con Pod, about Star Trek conventions. You can find all these shows and where to listen on trekgeeks.com/listen or by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Trek like we do. So it's nice to have the problem of the week sorted out by the end of the episode. Like we've talked about, this is definitely a throwback to old-timey Trek. And what's really great is each week, the important character storylines are going to carry over. So which ones will carry over next week? Tune in and find out as we discuss this and more on Discovering Trek. Be bold, be brave, be courageous, and until next time, never stop discovering.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.